Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome to this webinar co-hosted by Kyros Capital and vestr. In this webinar, we're going to discuss about actively managed certificates and other securitizations that Kyros offers. And at the end, we're also going to have a look at the vestr investment management platform, a tool that you're going to have access to if you decide to launch a product together with Kyros as an issuer. And with this introduction, I would want to hand it over to Sean.
Yes, thank you, Mihai. Thank you for the introduction. So my name's Sean Green. I'm head of distribution for Kyros Capital, and I'll be your presenter for today. I'm just going to share my screen here. So bear with me 1 second. So I just want to go over the topics we're going to cover today. So Kyros, I'll go over who we are and what we do. The way we are special using a securitization fund as an issuer, why we choose Luxembourg, Kyros Capital's unique offering for securitization, what is an AMC, an actively managed certificate, how investors can invest into an AMC and the benefits behind investing into an AMC. I'll also take you over our securitization platform and how it's structured. Talk a little bit about as Kyros being a preferred partner for SPVs. Again, looking at the right jurisdiction, which is Luxembourg, and then talk about our access to prime brokers and investment banks that we can give external asset managers and fund managers. Also securitizing non-bankable assets, and looking at the additional layers of protection that an AMC securitized through a fund can give you. I'll take you through some use cases that we've already done for clients, and then just speak a little bit about to show you the jurisdictions that we're in. So if I just start by saying Kyros Capital is a company headquartered in Singapore. We've been up and running now for 2.5 years. I'm the head of distribution in Singapore. And what we do is essentially we have an umbrella fund in Luxembourg, and the way it works with us is that rather than having a UCITS or a RAIF, we have a securitization fund, because there's a lot of advantages which I'll actually go into later on in the presentation. And our company has over 100 years of experience in the financial market. Myself, I have 25 years of experience in financial services. The last 15 or so, I've probably helped structure over a couple of hundred funds, whether that be Cayman, European vehicles, some VCCs in Singapore for our Asian joiners, and some Hong Kong structures as well. We're an independent company, so we're not owned by a bank or a private equity firm. So we're very nimble, we're very flexible. I would say all our fees are transparent. And as I say, we have over 100 years of expertise, including in structured finance, in securitization, in derivatives and fund structuring. So what is it that we actually do? So we have as I say, a Luxembourg fund structure, but it falls under the securitization laws. It doesn't fall under a UCITS or a RAIF. So it's a much more flexible structure in that sense. So we can take any type of assets, whether that be loans, receivables, equities, bonds, and we turn them into tradable securities, which are then easily distributed to investors. So as I say, if you look here, we have a full securitization fund. In Luxembourg, we have a Manco in Luxembourg as well. And the good thing about the securitization fund is that you can set up individual sub-funds extremely quickly, extremely cost efficiently. They are off balance sheet. They are ring-fenced not only from each other, but they're also ring-fenced from ourselves as well. So if Kyros Capital ever went bankrupt, that doesn't come onto our balance sheet. And that means that your assets are fully safe and secure once they're actually in the sub fund. So it gives investors a lot of comfort that A, it's in Luxembourg, so everything falls under European law. B, your assets are siloed and completely ring fenced, not only from each other but also from ourselves. And then we take care, and I think Vestr will go into this a bit later, of all the accounting, all the reporting. As I say, we have a Manco in Luxembourg as well. So we essentially have set up everything for the individuals, and then managers can come in and essentially they get an off-the-shelf product which can be set up extremely quickly, extremely easily. As we all know, Luxembourg is I would say, the gold standard in terms of fund structuring. Obviously, you have Cayman, you have BVI, you have some Hong Kong, Singapore, but I think in terms of global recognition, Luxembourg is probably the #1 jurisdiction in the world for setting up funds. It's also tax neutral, so all the assets within the structure, they can grow in a tax neutral environment. Obviously, investors, when they exit, they have to pay their taxes wherever they are. But because we have a flexible solution, you can either have a coupon or you can have an increase in the NAV. So there could be some tax advantages depending on where your investors are, whether they take a coupon or whether they take a capital gain, particularly in Asia. That's a thing where certain jurisdictions, particularly Singapore and Hong Kong, don't have a capital gains tax. All of our legal documents have been drafted by probably the best law firm in the world in the securitization market, which is Allen & Overy. We've also had all our documents validated by Linklaters, which is probably the #2 law firm in the securitization market. So all the documents there have been thoroughly vetted. Vestr are our corporate service provider, so they're the ones who do the accounting and all the reporting on an annual basis. And each sub fund comes with a licensed Luxembourg auditor, so we comply with all the Luxembourg laws in terms of audit, reporting, and accounting. So why is a Luxembourg securitization fund better? Well, if you look, there are certain jurisdictions, like I say, there's Cayman, there's BVI, there's Guernsey, Jersey, but these are all offshore jurisdictions. Luxembourg is considered an onshore jurisdiction within the European Union. So everything has to comply to European laws, which gives investors a lot of comfort and safety around what is there or where their investments are being held. As I say, it's a tax neutral structure. We have the way our structure works, because it is a fund. It's one structure, but each cell or each compartment or each sub fund is completely segregated. And because it's structured through a fund, then there are certain tax advantages as well, because previously you would set up a securitization vehicle via a company, and this would mean that you essentially set up an SPV. The SPV was held under an umbrella SPV, and that was held by a trust. These days you can no longer do that. Certain laws make it extremely hard to set up a company and create an AMC out of a company, because essentially an AMC is a debt instrument. So when today, when you set up a company and you essentially load it with debt and have very little equity, which is what an AMC is, you can no longer do that. So there are certain taxes that you would have to pay if you do it through a corporate vehicle. So we've come up with an innovative way of using a fund as the issuer. So each sub fund becomes the issuer of the AMC, and so what that means is that each sub fund is totally ring fenced. So each one is its own issuer of its own bonds. Therefore, it doesn't affect any of the other compartments. And also, as I say, if Kyros went bankrupt, it wouldn't also affect the assets within the sub funds. So investors have a lot of comfort there in that their assets are safe and secure. It's a very efficient way of setting up a fund. So we can set up a fund with a broker within 2 to 3 weeks. Every sub fund comes with a clearable ISIN. What that means to the investor is, rather than filling out an 80-page subscription form, rather than handing over their KYC, AML to a fund administrator, and then you having to wait probably a week or 2 weeks for the fund administrator to do the KYC, the AML checks, somebody's missed a signature. There's always a backwards and forwards with the investors. The investors get frustrated. Because it has an ISIN that's clearable on Euroclear or Clearstream, essentially the investor is just buying a security, like a stock or a bond. So they place an order either through their brokerage house or their private bank, and then it's just a clearable instrument, just like you would buy Microsoft shares or Google shares if you were investing through Swissquote or Interactive Brokers or a custodian like that. In terms of selection of fees, we can be very flexible there. So typically a manager or a multi-asset manager or a family office or a multi-family office will have a performance fee. They will have a management fee, and then sometimes there are distribution fees that can be built into the funds as well. There's no real restrictions in the type of assets that we can hold. So we can hold private equity, we can hold listed shares, we can even hold crypto tokens, as I say, loans, receivables. So it's an extremely flexible structure in terms of the type of assets that it can hold. In terms of the architecture, so typically we're very flexible on who the custodians or who the prime brokers can be. We're on board with several, and I'll take you through them later. But if you have a preferred prime broker, we're always happy to speak to them and open an account for them. For us at Kyros, I would say the main advantage I say is we have a unique solution in terms of that we're using a fund as an issuer and not a corporate vehicle. As I say, there are certain tax advantages there. Rather than using a company, as I said, you can no longer just set up a company these days and load it with debt. And as mentioned, that all our legal documents have been done by renowned Magic Circle firms, Allen & Overy, and then obviously Linklaters validated it. But what really is an AMC? An AMC is just a marketing name, really. It stands for Actively Managed Certificate, so you can see here. And in the past few years, these have really exploded in popularity, particularly with private banks. So UBS, Julius Baer, Saracen Bank, all have their own AMC platforms. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley also have their own AMC platforms, and they issue them to their clients. But the real difference there between our platform and a bank's platform is that a bank has to take everything on balance sheet. So they really only tend to do equities. They don't even do bonds. They certainly don't do private equity, and they're not going to entertain things like cryptocurrencies either. For us, because we're off balance sheet, we can design your product however you want it in terms of the assets that it's going to hold. And as I say, essentially an actively managed certificate is a tracker certificate to tracker index. So how you have a public index, like, for example, the S&P 500 or NASDAQ, that is a public index with a public rulebook. We create a private index with a private rulebook, and that rulebook tends to be very flexible in terms of what assets can go in there and what can be in there. And then the asset manager decides on the content of the index. So he can decide on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a by-hour basis. It's really up to the asset manager, depending on what the asset manager is investing into. So the AMC is fully covered. The only, as I say, the only tracking difference would be our fees, which are relatively minor. So if you can see here, we have the asset manager here. We have the sec fund or the fund holding onto the assets, and then you have the investors here, and then essentially an AMC is a debt instrument. So it's a tracker certificate in the form of a debt instrument. So the investors hold on to the certificates in their bank account, and they get the participation of all the economic rights in the underlying assets. All we do is we hedge the index by buying the actual assets of the underlying assets for the tracker. Because we're using a fund, and because each sub-fund is legally segregated under Luxembourg law, then there's no issuer risk. Obviously, if you have an AMC with a bank or with a securities house, then typically there's an issuer risk. If, for example, bankrupt, then all those assets go onto their balance sheet, and typically the investor would lose their money. With us, it's completely ring-fenced and segregated, as I say, under European law, so that there's no risk of issuers going bankrupt, because it's just whatever the underlying assets are within the sub-fund. I say we can be flexible in terms of the fee implementation that the manager wants to. We've had some managers who have a multi-tiered performance fee, some have a multi-tiered management fee, distribution fees because they're engaging in third parties to distribute their products. Everything can be combined into one. You can also list the AMCs on the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, for example, as you can see here, or you can list them on the Vienna Stock Exchange. And as I say, we can hold single assets, multi-assets. You can mix private equity with listed assets and even crypto inside a fund. So it's an extremely flexible solution for let's say external asset managers or smaller managers who want to set up a fund. And as I say, we use Vestr for our calculation tool, and I can't talk highly enough of them because we automate everything. So we have a direct feed into Interactive Brokers, Swissquote, etc. So you can have a daily NAV, and then we can publish the NAVs directly into Bloomberg, so it can come with a Bloomberg ticker, and then you can create a track record from there, even on Bloomberg. So how do you invest into an AMC? So investing into an AMC really is as easy as buying a stock or a bond. Each AMC comes with a term sheet. The term sheet obviously sets out all the fees, who the issuer is, who the index sponsor is. The index sponsor is the index advisor, a bit like a fund manager in a normal fund. And here you would have the individual investors. They would typically have a custodian bank, like a private bank or maybe a securities house. The AMCs are issued from the sub-fund, and there we work with some of the best in class. So BNY Mellon are one of our biggest paying agents. EFG, the private bank in Luxembourg, are also one of our bigger paying agents, SocGen. And then we have, for smaller deals, then we have some smaller Swiss and Liechtenstein private banks that act as the transfer agent. And a transfer agent really is there to apply for the ISIN for each AMC. They also collect the cash, and then they deliver the notes to the investor's bank account. So they take care of everything there. So for the fund manager, they don't have to worry about, let's say, subscription forms, KYC, AML at the fund level, because all that is done right here at the custodian bank level. So each individual investor, when they already have their bank account or they already have their brokerage account, they've already undergone KYC and AML to actually open the account. So then it's just, as I say, it's just simple as buying a security like you would normally. You'd buy a Microsoft share or a Google bond. One thing I will say is that sorry, that everything comes with so each product comes with a rule book, and each product comes with an index sponsor agreement for the manager, which they sign. There's KYC for the manager to undergo. So Vistra, who, as I said, are our corporate service provider, are the ones who do all the KYC for the managers. And that once that's on board, then we're ready to go, and we can be up and running in 2 to 3 weeks. So you can actually, if you've got investors already lined up, you can be trading money within 3 to 4 weeks of starting the whole process. And as I say, we can list these AMCs on the Luxembourg exchange, or even on the Vienna exchange. Then it becomes a listed security, so it's even easier for people to buy. Forgive me one moment. So also we can publish the pricing on Bloomberg. So you can follow all the private banks can just take the pricing from the Bloomberg feed. So it's extremely easy for private banks. Private banks also like these type of structures, because typically when you invest in a fund or you invest in a private asset, then the money leaves the bank, and we all know bankers don't like AUM loss. But with us, because it's a security, it stays within the bank's books, and so they can securitize it. They charge some fees. Maybe if they're smart, they'll offer an LTV on the product. So it makes it much easier for banks to allow outside investment, rather than just, if you're sending money to a private equity investment, that's technically a loss of AUM for the bank. One other thing to note is that typically when you set up a fund, there's a lot of upfront fees, there's a lot of lawyers' fees. We strip all that out, so we don't charge anything upfront, and that then includes all our fees are just an annual fee, and that includes the term sheet, all the legal documents, all the documentation, but also when you eventually decide to close your product down, there are no liquidation fees as well. So it's very easy to set up, and it's very easy if you decide to maybe distribute all the gains back to the investors. Then you would just simply distribute or redeem. The investors would redeem the product, and we would just simply shut down the sub fund, and there's no cost to us in doing that. So directly, there's no cost to the investment manager as well. What I would like to say is that investing into an AMC, as I say, is as straightforward as just having an ISIN. You give it to your banker, and you subscribe into the AMC, and the investment manager then gets an LPOA. We can just give that straight away to the investment manager, and then they manage the assets how they deem fit. You don't have to come through us to place trades. You place trades directly with, whether it be a Swiss quote, an Interactive Brokers, or maybe it would be a prime broker of your choice. One thing to note here is, depending on what type of structure you want to do, it will depend on what type of transfer agent we would use. Typically for bigger deals, you would use somebody like BNY Mellon. But if it's a small deal, maybe it's your first fund that you're launching, then we would use maybe a smaller paying agent for that. So what I'd like to do now is just take you through our structure.
Sean, can I interrupt you a little bit, please?
Yeah, sure.
We have a number of questions regarding AMCs, and I think it would maybe make sense to answer them now.
Sure.
I'm going to read them off the chat. So if anyone else has questions, you have a chat icon at the top of the window, and you can go there and ask questions. So the first question was, can you have leverage in this kind of AMC?
Yes, you can. So there's actually some use cases I was going to show later, but you can have leverage. You can trade options, you can trade futures, swaps, forwards. If you've got if we have a full prime broker, then they'll provide margin. You can also buy structured products through the AMC. So yes, you can have leverage.
The next question is, how can a client buy an AMC with an interactive broker's account? Does the AMC have to be listed on an exchange?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, interactive brokers is a no-go. So we can have, so the index sponsor or the manager can have an interactive broker's account within the AMC to trade, and we have many of these. So they would trade maybe options or listed securities, but the individual investor, unfortunately for interactive brokers, they don't allow individual investors to buy the AMC. You would typically buy either through a private bank or with Swissquote. Now, Swissquote are in Asia, and obviously they're very large in Europe. Or there's some other brokers, Saxo Bank, for example, you can buy them through, and we're always adding different counterparties who will let the investor buy the AMC.
Can you later explain the flow of money and what are the safeguards against unauthorized transfer of money out of the structure?
Yes, I can. Maybe if we go back. So the flow of money would be, you have an investor here with a bank account. We give them, the index sponsor, a term sheet. The term sheet is passed to let's say their banker or broker, and they subscribe into the product. As I say, the AMCs come with an ISIN, so it's all clearable on Euroclear. It's a Euroclear or Clearstream clearable security. So it's an extremely safe transaction in that sense. Then the money arrives into the paying agent's account. So we're talking BNY Mellon, EFG, SocGen, and there we have what's called, we don't have signature rights. So we can't transfer money from BNY Mellon to Kyros or any other account. The money has to go to another account, so a secondary custodian, which would be interactive brokers, for example, or let's say Swissquote or a prime broker. And once the money's transferred there, we then issue an LPOA to the index sponsor. And I'm not sure if people are familiar, but once the money comes into a secondary custodian, they will only send it back to where it's come from. Essentially, it would be BNY Mellon or EFG or SocGen. And then SocGen would then, when there's a redemption, they receive a redemption request from an investor, and then that then goes back into the investor's account. So at no point can Kyros Capital transfer the money out of the structure. We also, another highlight of our structure is that we have 5 directors within the structure. 3 of them are from Vestr, so they're independent directors, and they're the ones who give an overview of each transaction. And then plus, for example, there's a 4-eye view on every transaction that goes through. So we're never signatories with signing rights to send the money to somewhere else. I hope that.
Another question is, what are the administrative fees of these structures?
Great question. Yeah. So upfront costs are 0. And then I'm going to talk in US dollars here. So 0 to set up. And with that setup, I'll explain in a minute what you get. But then from 0 to 10 million, it's 35 basis points. From 10 million to 25 million is 25 basis points. And 25 million is 25 basis points. So if you go to 100 million, then we can negotiate down to maybe 15 basis points. But those fees are charged quarterly in arrears. And typically there's a minimum of around 15,000 euros per annum charged to the account. So if you've got a $2 million AMC, it's probably going to be a 15,000 minimum. Now those fees include all the legal documents, the term sheets, all the index sponsor agreements, the rule book, the setting up of the AMC and the sub-fund, the application of the ISIN. It also includes the bank's fees. It includes listing in Bloomberg. And then very importantly, you get a daily, through vestr, you get a daily NAV. which is then published into Bloomberg. And our fee also includes the financial statement. So there's a financial statement done once a year by Vestr, and it also includes the audit of each subcompartment or subfund by a licensed auditor in Luxembourg. So it's an all-in fee. So the fee that I quoted there is for everything. There's no extra fees. Obviously, if you're trading on Interactive Brokers or Swissquote, then there are fees to be paid there.
Do you only work with asset managers, or can you also work with investment advisors where you supply the manager to be advised?
Yeah, so we work with asset managers, family offices, multifamily offices. Within our structure, you actually don't need to be licensed in that sense. So we can work with investment advisors, and if need be, we can be the index sponsor, but we do charge an extra 10 basis points in that case when we are the index sponsor.
Minimum size?
As I said, there's no real minimum size for us. There's a minimum fee, which is 15,000 euros. And I'd say that 15,000 includes the calculation of the NAV. So if you looked at it as a typical fund, it would be the fund administration fee. It includes the audit, it includes the financial statements, and as I say, the publishing on Bloomberg and the issuance of the ISIN and the setting up of the bank account. So when I say the setup takes 2 to 3 weeks, that also includes the bank account within the AMC. And we're already on board with Interactive Brokers and Swissquote. So to getting let's say a broker account through them is very easy. It takes kind of 10 days, and we do that at the same time as we set up the subfund and the AMC.
Do you calculate the value of the AMC on an end-of-day basis? Are you able to do intraday calculations to be published to clients?
Yeah, great question. So we typically do it on an end-of-day basis, just because if we had to do it intraday, then we'd have to charge more for that. And I think what we like to do is we like to try and keep the cost low for managers. So typically it's an end-of-day basis. And we have a direct feed into, for example, Interactive Brokers or Swissquote. So at the end of the day, it pulls everything from the account, and then vestr tool automatically calculates the NAV for us.
Which banks in Singapore are able to subscribe to your AMC?
Yeah, I would say pretty much all of them. The only one that's really difficult, to be honest with you, is Bank of Singapore. We're working with DBS on a number of things. UOB, for example, UOB Cairn Hill. We're onboarding with them. Maybank, all the Swiss banks, obviously, are totally fine. We've already done deals with Julius Baer, LGT, Saracen. We're actually we're onboarding with at the moment, or onboarded with. So yeah, pretty much all of them, other than probably Bank of Singapore, which is they tend to be quite tough to deal with.
Where do you deal with UK managers, investors? Do you offer any solutions to those thorny issues of EU distribution?
Yeah, so we're fully MiFID compliant. So you can distribute our product within Europe, and you can be fully compliant on that.
Is the secondary market for the AMC, is there a bid-ask spread to cross for the clients to sell back their AMC or add units to their holdings?
No, we don't charge any bid offer spread. Occasionally, you might get an index sponsor or manager that wants to put a bid offer spread in there, but for us, we don't charge anything. As I said, the only fees we charge are the annual maintenance fees that I quoted earlier. So everything, when an investor subscribes or redeems, they're subscribing or redeeming at NAV price, not NAV price minus a bid offer spread.
We'll take one more question and then go back to the presentation. What are the requirements for a client to be qualified investor to be able to buy the AMC?
Yeah, really good question. So in Luxembourg, to be a qualified investor is a minimum of 100,000 euros or US dollars. And that's the only qualification, really. So it's a little bit like a Cayman fund. I don't know if people on the webinar have dealt with Cayman funds before, but typically it's 100,000 as a minimum investment. It's exactly the same here.
Cool. Then let's go back to the presentation, please, Sean.
Okay, sure. So I think I've probably got 10 minutes left, Mihai?
It's fine if you go over. It's fine. Finish.
Okay, so the structure is set up this way: is that we have a foundation on top. The foundation owns the shares of the management company, which is the Lux Manco. Here in the grey boxes is the issuer or the Lux fund, and then each compartment, as you see here, then issues the AMCs. So as I say, each compartment is legally segregated. It's bankruptcy remote. It's ring fenced under European law, and then you can have within the AMC, whether it be a single asset or you can have a portfolio of assets. And here you have the asset manager managing, or let's say advising on the AMC on what goes into the content. And then for us, Kyros Capital, what we are, our part in this whole role is that we're the arranger of the deal. So we're kind of like the salesperson of the deal. But if anything happens to us, we don't take these assets onto our balance sheet. As I say, they're fully bankruptcy remote. All the legal documents were done by Alan and Overy. And when we were onboarding with BNY Mellon, it took us nearly a year, probably over a year, to onboard with BNY Mellon. And BNY Mellon, when they read everything, said, "That's great, we understand, but we'd like to get Linklater as our legal counsel to review all the documents." Linklater reviewed and validated the structure, and then it was very kind of BNY Mellon to make us pay Linklater's fee. So that was very kind of them. And given the time, I'm happy to obviously explain this in greater detail to people who have questions about the off-balance sheet nature of things. But as I say, it's completely ring-fenced, and assets are very, very secure under European law. We're also speaking to a lot of family offices. I think these days, the idea that you can set up a BVI or a Cayman company and pretend that things are offshore and you don't pay any tax, those days I think are gone. So we're also acting an AMC can also act as an SPV for a private asset, whether it be a family asset or an operating business. And I'd say the costs are relatively low in setting up everything. Again, going back to Luxembourg, why we chose Luxembourg, we looked at many jurisdictions, including Singapore, Gibraltar, Cyprus, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, Guernsey, Jersey, obviously the BVI and Cayman. And to be honest with you, none of them had everything that we were looking for. The securitization fund is very cost efficient and obviously tax effective. It's tax neutral. Luxembourg is a lot more. The rules around securitization have been around for 20 plus years. So the laws are a lot more flexible in terms of the type of assets that you can securitize. Having a Luxembourg SPV allows for, under European law, for everything to be segregated. There's no real political risk in Luxembourg. It's the real financial center or the fund center of Europe. And then, as I say, we comply with all the new tax laws that have been implemented in Europe. So, as I say, you can no longer set up a company, load it with debt, or you can't hybridize a company where you issue an AMC, which is the debt instrument, and then you use it for equity purposes. With us, because it's a fund, we comply with all those new regulations. Here we have just a plate of, so I obviously couldn't put them all on, but these are some of our counterparties or people that we work with. And if you're looking at crypto, then we have FalconX, the largest crypto prime broker. Kraken is one of the biggest exchanges. HydraX is probably one of the largest tokenization platforms. And TDX, actually one of the largest structured product providers for digital assets. And then obviously in terms of listed assets, we have obviously Interactive Brokers, Swissquote, Momo in Singapore, Velocity Trade, who are very good for FX. And then we have the more institutional clients, counterparties here, including EFG, who are the paying agent. We also use them as a broker for structured products as well. As I say, non-bankable assets, a lot of managers and multifamily offices like using our structure for non-bankable assets because maybe they do a private equity investment and then they maybe have 10, 15, 20 investors behind. And that's a lot of KYC, that's a lot of corralling of people. With us, it's just one term sheet. They subscribe into the term sheet and then we buy the private asset. And again, these are bankable with all the private banks. So then the bankers actually receive or keep the AUM. One thing I would like to point out as well is there's an additional layer of protection. So when we set up an AMC, there's a Lux Manco, and then obviously the Lux Securitization Fund. So the Lux Manco manages a securitization fund. We set up a sub-fund, and that sub-fund then issues an AMC. The investors here have a direct ownership of the AMC, which is a tracker certificate. So it's tracking the assets within the sub-fund. So they have a indirect ownership to the assets. So we essentially become the beneficial owner of the asset. So almost like a trust. When you put assets into a trust, the trustee becomes the beneficial owner of the assets. And for us, it's very much the same thing. So actually, we've been speaking to a lot of law companies where maybe some families prefer to use our structure rather than a trust structure. And we can also, one of the good things about our structure is that when we have the assets here, if the end investors ever wanted to redeem the note or cancel the note and receive the asset, we can actually pay out the asset in kind back to the investors as well. So it's very, very flexible in that sense. I just wanted to show you how the flow works with an AMC. So you have the asset manager here. Maybe there's 30 or 40 different investors. Here he's got 30 or 40 different KYCs, 30 or 40 different documents to fill out or help fill out. The fund administrator obviously is involved in that. But it's a hassle. I was in fund administration for a long time, and one of the biggest, I would say, problems of a fund is that doing the AML KYC is just getting worse and worse. With an AMC, the asset manager just deals with the counterparties, which are the banks. So we never see the end investor in that sense. We just see DBS, Julius Baer, UBS subscribing into the note. So for us, the actual investor is the bank rather than the individual investor. And then at the back, you can have, Bank A, Bank B, Bank C. There may be 10 individual investors in each, but we're only dealing with one counterparty. So again, it makes it a lot easier for people these days to make an investment rather than having to go through a fund vehicle, which can be extremely cumbersome and tiring of sending KYC documents all over the world. So the KYC still is done. FATCA CRS is still filed. It's filed at the bank level. And then the investor would have Google shares, Microsoft shares, AMC 1, 2, 3. And here's probably how it works. So you get the investors, they do the KYC at the bank or their broker or their token platform. And then the subscriptions arrive, and the AMC essentially, or we only see either the private bank, the broker, or the token platform buying the AMC. Just a few examples I'd like to go through. So here's just a typical hedge fund. The investors invest into the AMC, and then cash goes through the paying agent, comes into the either Interactive Brokers or Swissquote or Saxo Bank or any other, let's say, executing broker or prime broker that the manager decides on. And as I say, we're on board with FalconX, who are the biggest crypto broker. So if we have people out there who are into crypto, then we're fully able there to meet those needs. Private equity, so private equity transactions. As I say, again, the fund becomes the owner of the private equity. And sometimes if it's a private equity fund, or even if it's a private equity transaction, there may be lockups where the actual investor here can then sell the note to other investors, creating liquidity in the product rather than being tied into a product for 10 years, which typically what happens with a closed-ended fund. If you've got a Cayman fund, or maybe you've got a Singapore fund, and you're looking to market into Europe, then we can become the feeder into your offshore fund. So then we just become the investor into the offshore fund, and then the manager markets the Luxembourg AMC to people in Europe, and all they're doing is subscribing into the tracker or into the AMC that then buys units within the fund. Tokenization, if we've got anyone out there who we can't accept tokens directly, subscription. We do work with one of the largest tokenization platforms in the world, where investors can subscribe into the token through a tokenization platform with USDC or USDT, and then the tokenization platform then converts the tokens into cash and then subscribes into the AMC in cash. So essentially, the tokenization platform becomes the holder of the security in a cash transaction. But the investors here get a token that reflects, again, the underlying assets that are here. So that's an innovative product that we've come up with. Pre-IPO, a little bit like the private equity. We've had some clients who want to buy a pre-IPO. Again, because we technically the fund owns the asset, we then become the beneficial owner. And here there's no lockup for the investor. If they wanted to sell the notes to somebody else after a month or 2 months, rather than being locked up for years, then they can do that. Structured products. So we've done a super cool product recently, which with the gold accumulator through EFG. EFG have an open architecture. So then, therefore, you're getting the best pricing on an accumulator, decumulator. We can do shark fins, whatever kind of structured product you like, and you're getting the best execution because you can execute through EFG, who have an open architecture platform. Real estate, as I say, we've spoken to some people who want to use real estate assets as a subscription in kind. So they would essentially take the asset, you would have a free of payment, you would put the asset into the sub fund, and then we would issue notes or AMCs to the investor. So the investor owns a tracker on the real estate then, rather than owning the real estate directly, and the fund then becomes the end investor into the real estate. Credit link note, speaking of real estate, so we've done quite a few credit link notes for bridging loans for UK property, where then the credit link note is sold to investors. The property developer raises money and has used it for a bridging loan. We also have access to all the big private equity houses, so Blackstone, KKR, Carlyle, and some family offices, multi-family offices, or investment advisors, like having access to these, but because they come through us, the minimums are a lot lower, and the fees are a lot lower as well. Than if you go through a typical private bank, they typically charge you 2% up front, I think, and there's normally minimums of 3 or 5 million that you need to go into. Here, you could have 10 investors behind you. They each maybe subscribe a few 100,000, and then therefore you can aggregate the AUM and subscribe into one of the leading private equity funds. One thing we've done here is this, probably the last example we have, is where we took an annuity. So particularly popular in Asia is a VUL or a PPLI, which is a life insurance contract. Within the life insurance, you would normally have a private bank account. Now, this particular investor wanted to buy an annuity. The PPLI, or actually it was through a VUL, said, I don't want to buy somebody else's insurance contract. The private bank was like, well, this is a loss of AUM for me, so I'm not too keen on that. We stepped in, we securitized the annuity. The bank essentially holds a bond. So the AUM didn't go down for the private banker. And then the VUL, for the VUL, is just as simple. They're holding a bond. And it was actually a AAA rated, the insurance company, it was a AAA rated company. So we we helped it pretty much everyone. The client's happy, the private bank's happy, the VUL provider's happy because they get to keep the AUM as well. As I mentioned, we headquartered in Singapore. We have an office in Hong Kong, and we're just newly incorporated in Switzerland. And our CEO, who is from Zurich, will be setting up the office, and he'll be there in 3 weeks. For anybody in Switzerland who would like a face-to-face meeting with Kyros, can do that by the end of July. So thank you for your time, everyone. I really appreciate it. Any other questions, I'm either happy to answer now, or my email's up here. Just here, you can email me or add me on LinkedIn. We can have a chat offline as well. But thank you very much for your patience and time, and appreciate all the questions you asked. And one thing I would say is I'll pass you back to Mihai. I'm a former fund administrator. I worked in fund administration for a long time, and typically your NAV takes, you have to wait. First of all, they only do it monthly. You have to wait 10, 15, 20 days. And if you're a smaller client, you probably have to wait longer because you get pushed to the back. Vestr have an unbelievable tool where the NAV is calculated daily. So you get a daily pricing. You don't need to wait 20 days. And I can't speak enough highly about their product.
Let's take 2 more questions. When you list the AMC on Luxembourg or Vienna exchange, do you publish bid-ask as a market maker on the exchange?
Yeah, there's no need for a market maker. So there's just the bid. We just match the bid in the offer. That's the good thing about listing on Luxembourg and Vienna. There's no need to go and pay for a market maker.
Can an investor based outside Europe buy the AMC?
Yeah, so an investor in, like I say, an investor can buy it anywhere other than the US. So this is it's technically a Reg S security. So you can buy it anywhere you want, other than the US. So non-US persons.
Thank you. So now I want to give you a really short demo of the vestr platform that you will have access when working with Kyros. The first thing I would want to start with is a little bit of platform statistics. So we have dozens of issuers that use our platform. We have more than 1,600 external asset managers and portfolio managers that use the platform to rebalance products or to create reports. We have thousands of products on the platform, both AMCs, but also CLNs and also other products. And just looking a bit at the AMCs, so if we look at all of the AMCs on our platform, around 86% of them just use stocks, ETFs, funds as underlyings. And what we call the rest, 7.6%, these are AMCs that also contains things like real estate or cryptocurrencies, or we've seen things such as jumping horses or AMCs on wines and so on. So pretty much everything that you can think to securitize, you can probably do in an AMC. And our platform supports anything. So if you want to have real estate as underlyings, student loans as underlyings, and so on, you'll be able to do that on our platform. The average number of AMCs per asset managers is around 3, and the asset manager on our platform that has the most has 48 AMCs. So typically we see that when asset managers start with an AMC, they continue using them as a product because all of the benefits that Sean explained earlier. On average, we have around 27 underlyings per AMCs. So this could be multiple stocks or multiple ETFs. And the average size of an AMC that is off balance sheet, as Sean was explaining, is the average is 11 million and the median is 2 million. The smallest product we have on our platform currently is under 1 million, and the largest product that we have currently on our platform is over 1 billion in size. So you can really go you can really have products of any size. So let's go a bit into the platform. So when you log in the first time, this is what you see. You get an overview of all of the products that you currently have with the issuer that you're working with. In this case, could be Kyros. And you are able to quickly get an overview of all of the products. And if we would go into a specific product that we already have here, 1 second, I'm going to load. Yeah, so if we would choose a specific product that we have, we can go in and see all of the underlyings that the product currently contains. So on the overview page, we see what our current composition for the product is. And in this case, you see we have many different underlyings within the same AMCs. We have options, we have non-bankables, we have cash, we have cryptocurrencies, but also a bunch of bonds and also stocks. In the platform, as Sean already mentioned, you're easily able to see the NAV. So you're going to be able to see how many certificates you have, what's the ISIN of the product, and also the NAV for the product. And then you are also able to see a breakdown for each of the components. Another important aspect is the reporting part. So you are able in the platform to create your own reports whenever you want, with exactly what information you want them to contain. So you don't have to reach out to Sean or to Kyros and wait for them to do this for you. You just go here in the platform and you can create multiple templates. So this would be, for example, one template, but you can create and save other templates. And this basically completely changes how your template looks like and what type of information it contains. So just to quickly show you how easy it would be to edit the information that you're showing on a report. So you just click edit. And for example, here on the right-hand side, we have all of the different cars that you see here on the left-hand side. So let's say I want to go into the facts and figures, and maybe I don't want to show the AUM on the report. I would just open this here and uncheck AUM. And automatically the report on the left-hand side updates with these changes that I've made. And there are pretty much everything that we are tracking on our platform. You can find it here in the reporting interface, and you can add it or remove it from your report. We also provide the report in multiple languages, so in English, German, French, Italian, and Spanish. So if you have international investors, it's very easy to create a report for them in the language that they speak. I'm just going to close out of the editing of the report. And another feature that I want to show you with the reporting interface is that you can create a report any day for any other time in history. So let's say you would want to have a report of exactly how the product looked like on the 31st of September, and you probably don't want to work on the 31st of September. You can just go here into version history, and you select the exact date to which you want to go back to. And the platform is going to automatically recreate the product composition for exactly that date, and you're going to have a report with the numbers that correspond exactly for that date. And then you have the option to download the report as a PDF, and then you can, either print it out or you can send it out as an email to your investors. And if I open it up as a PDF, you see that you get exactly what we had on the screen earlier is here as a PDF report. And one more aspect that I would want to show you, and then we're going to have to stop because of time constraints, but the platform has tons of other features, is you can actually also subscribe to the reports that you want. So if you go into preferences, and you have here an option to subscribe to reports, and if I open this up and I open one of my products here, you can decide with what frequency you want to subscribe to reports? Do you want to get them daily, monthly, quarterly, weekly? Exactly what time do you want the report to be delivered? Which options of languages that you support? Which template do you want the report to be in? And also additional email addresses that you want to send this report to. And with that, I'm going to finish the presentation, even though we have a lot more features that we can talk about, and quickly go back to the webinar to see if we have any more questions. And we have one more. Maybe Sean, you can help us out here. Cool. Actually, if you list the AMC on the exchange, can a client buy it with an Interactive Broker account?
No, Interactive Brokers unfortunately have made it very clear that they won't allow that. But as I say, depending on where you are, Swissquote, for example, they will allow it. It's not a problem. You can open up an account with Swissquote in 1 day, and you can do all the KYC, AML, account opening online. It's pretty easy. So I would always suggest them if they don't have a private bank.
And the last question, does the asset manager need to be regulated?
Not for us, no.
With that, I think we're going to end it. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for taking the time. If you have any other questions, please send us to us by email. You also now have seen Sean's email address, and we will be happy to answer any questions you might have further.
Right, yeah, and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. So, if you have any, if you want to contact me there. If you're in Asia or in Singapore, happy to meet up for a coffee. And if there's anybody in Switzerland, our CEO and founder will be in Switzerland. He's Swiss, and he'll be there from July onwards to set up the Swiss office. So he's happy to do face-to-face meetings there as well. And thank you, everyone, for taking your time to join today. I hope it was beneficial.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.